Now, the next game of the round was between the Geelong Cats and the Collingwood Magpies. And the Cats handled the Pies in this one, but it was one of those almost disappointing, maybe a little uglier win from that. A little uglier than what you like to see from the Cats because they led comfortably for most of this game, but then you give up 34 in the fourth. I believe they got outscored 34 or 24, a lot closer than it really needed to be. And especially against a Collingwood team that can't kick a goal to save their damn lives. They're looking like the Fremantle Dockers at this point. Sorry, Docker fans. Unfortunately, I'll have to rag on you guys a little bit more near the end of this round. But Collingwood kids 6 and 15. The Geelong poor goal kicking themselves too, 8 and 13. So they're almost lucky to win this game. They escape by 10, and it's oh man, like I want to believe in this Geelong team. I really do. It obviously hurts that they don't have Dangerfield in the lineup, but they still have plenty of talent there. Like Tom Hawkins, he was the goal leader with 3 this game, so you still have him. But at the same time, I just am losing. It's almost like my thoughts on Port Adelaide at this point. Yeah, we could blame the injuries, but also they have to play better if they really want to stand out as one of the favorites for the Premiership this season.
Yeah, I know we were talking a bit about this before we started rolling. Again, Geelong, they're hot and cold. They seem to always be hot and cold a lot of times just because, and this was true previously, like in the round before against Gold Coast. They let Gold Coast hang around a
Mm-hmm.
lot. They were consistently, for the first 3 quarters in within striking distance, 2 goals down, 3 goals down. Obviously Gold Coast wasn't kicking well in that game either, but you can't get away with that against the elite teams. You've got to just go full throttle sometimes. These should have been 2 statement wins
Mm-hmm.
for the Cats, and they weren't. If I could describe Pies Cats in one word, it's like imagine if an AFL game was a cringe emoji. That's how bad it was for most of the time.
Can we
It's
count
like
emoji as one word? Donnie here, can we get official decision on this?
I'll let it fly. I'll
Let
let it
fly.
fly.
All right, motion carried.
okay. Yeah, it was just ugly. There's no other way to describe it. And you saw Hawkins. He was giving the his post game interview on on Seven, and you could tell he was disappointed. I think they kind of just knew it was going to be a grind it out type victory, and Collingwood was inevitably going to desperately try to claw their way back in there if they could actually, figure out which sticks to kick between. But no, I mean Geelong again. They had a chance to blow them out of the water, and they just didn't. And obviously, they're going into the bye. Hopefully, they'll get Dangerfield back soon. But they have an absolute meat grinder of a schedule coming up. They've got Port Adelaide on the road after the bye. They've got the Doggies at home in Cardinia Park, and they've got Brisbane up at the Gabba. So we're going to figure out pretty quickly if Geelong is an actual flag contender again this year.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, this was a game. Honestly, I when you first started talking about it, I almost wanted to pop in and go, "Do we really have to talk about this game?" Because this was bowling shoe ugly when it comes to describing this game. I we and as Rick kind of said, is we were talking about this game before, and I thought of this as we were talking about it. Is this is the third straight game where Geelong really has let a team that's nowhere near their talent level,
Mm-hmm.
nowhere near where they are on this in the ladder, and they stayed with them. Like, yes,
Yeah.
Collingwood makes a run late to take it from a 30-point game down to a 10-point game. So I got to give Collingwood, they're not giving up. I got to give that. But this is a game literally where it's like, I almost hate to say it, like Geelong is kind of like the proverbial team is they play to the level of their opponent. And it's really kind of weird if you look at it that whoever they play, that's kind of their game, the way
Mm-hmm.
they play it.
If you're
If
American
they
that
play,
listens to this show, first off, thank you. But second of all, think of the Pittsburgh Steelers with this one, constantly playing
Mhm.
down to their opponents, barely winning games that they should blow out of the water.
Yeah.
Exactly, and that's kind of a perfect explanation there. That this is a Geelong team that I think they keep continuing to play to their opponent. Now, as Rick kind of said, with Port Adelaide coming up after the bye, the biggest question is, will they play up to Port, or will Port down to them? That's the biggest question. And then I've brought it up numerous times, and I'm going to keep bringing it up because it's the truth. Coach Scott has trouble with buys. He is 0-8 coming back from buys in the last 8 seasons.
He can use some help from Andy Reid.
Oh yeah, I mean it's absolutely ridiculous how many times he finds ways to lose games after the bye. I mean, a few years ago they were 10-1 going into the bye, and they one loss the rest of every game the rest of that season. They made the finals, but they played like absolute feces when it comes to it after the end of the year. So I don't know. This Geelong team is way too. I mean, they're just suspect to me. Like, I think they have the skill. I think they have the list to be in that group that we say that we think are elite, that are flag contenders: the Western Bulldogs, the Melbourne Demons, the Brisbane Lions.
Yeah.
I think Geelong should be there with the list that they have, the way it is constructed. Yeah. But these performances make you question that, because this is unacceptable. Yes, it's a win. Yes, it's 4 points. But as I said, bowling shoe ugly. This is a Collingwood team that is absolutely in shambles, and it doesn't help. They've lost Brodie Grundy in this game to a nerve injury.
You mean the only guy that's had like any sort of hope for this Collingwood team?
No, it's Jordan DeGoey a little bit, but he's another story in and of himself. But unfortunately,
Mason Cox, you need to start kicking 5 a game, man. Jeez.
Well, did you hear what Peter Moore said a couple weeks ago?
I haven't right off the top of my head, but I know that the biggest thing with Grundy is that he's just under a mountain of pressure to perform to this new contract he just signed. Yeah. And to be completely honest, he hasn't. And it's not really even all his fault. He's doing everything he can. I think they fell victim to the situation, and they signed him to a massive contract. And I don't know if Brodie Grundy is a 7-year contract player. I don't know. And right now he is proving that to be absolutely correct when it comes to it. I hope he gets healthy soon. I'm not sure. I'd have to double check really quickly whether Collingwood, they are not off this week, so they do play this week.
Adelaide. Yeah,
exactly. So that's
the Oval, right?
Yeah, at the Adelaide Oval. I think it's obviously. I mean, we could probably talk for an hour about how bad Collingwood's been this season, but obviously the Grundy injury was the last thing they needed. But what I was saying earlier about Peter Moore, if you guys don't know, he's Darcy Moore's dad. He was a Collingwood legend at like late 70s, early 80s, around that time period. AFL Hall of Famer. A lot of people forget that Darcy Moore was a father-son draft choice, but he basically said a couple of weeks ago that literally nobody can score 4 goals a game for Collingwood right now, just because of the way that Nathan Buckley is coaching. It's like watching grass grow out there. It's incredibly boring. There's no excitement. And the thing is, like, obviously, you were saying about Ross, about how Grundy's the only one who's been playing any good for them. That's the thing. Like, Pendlebury, Steele Sidebottom, Brodie Myercheck. All of these guys are veteran players that we've seen do incredible things with the footy. Pendlebury had something like 13 disposals against Geelong. When was the last time Scotty Pendlebury ever had that few disposals in an AFL game? Like, you want to look at players, and I think to some extent this applies. I know we'll get to Hawthorn later. But to some extent it applies to Tom Mitchell, Brownlow medalist with the Hawks. Hawks are doing terribly right now. Look at someone like when Gary Ablett Jr. was with the Gold Coast Suns. Now, the Suns were a joke at that point. He was just desperately trying to hold them all together. Young team, young list, getting flogged virtually every week. But Gary Ablett is averaging 35 disposals every single week, and he wins a Brownlow for them. Even if Gold Coast is going to lose nearly every week, Gaza Ablett was going to give him a chance to win. Who's going to do that for Collingwood right now? Who can stand up? Who can put their hand up and say, yeah, the season's a wash. We can either roll over and play dead, or we can do the best we can to try to salvage something out of the season and maybe salvage Buck's job at this point.
Man, so that's almost worse. I think the worst thing they could do is salvage Nathan Buckley.
Well, it's the only way out. Either they keep him and they fire everyone around him, or they get rid of him and start over completely from scratch.
And with a season like this, it might look like it's going to be live. There's another team we'll be talking about soon that looks like they should just sell. Let's call it this point. But we go.
Let me get one more thing in there. The other thing that I would say though is that even if Buckley goes, the only question is who wants to come in and take this absolute dumpster fire right now, because not only do you have all these issues on the field, but you've got all the issues off the field. I mean, they're trying to get an extra extraordinary meeting. They're talking about coups in the boardroom. There's arguments over the one board member who just came on, who they said hasn't been a person, so she wasn't supposed to qualify because she hadn't been there for more than a year. This literally right now, Collingwood just needs to have everybody outside the field be as quiet as possible. Tell Bucks, do the best that you can, dude. We'll try to figure it out. But in my honest opinion, if I'm Nathan Buckley right now, I said it 2 weeks ago, I'm going to say it again. If I'm Nathan Buckley, coach the rest of the season and run away screaming. Because right now, it just is not something you want to deal with. This is at least a 2 to 3 year rebuild, because Pendlebury, I think the reason he had such a low disposal rate, they moved him forward because they're trying to get the youngsters into midfield, and it's not working. Steele Sidebottom's a great player, but Steele Sidebottom this year has been off and on. He's been good. He's been bad. He's been good. He's been bad. I think Pendlebury took Sidebottom because they moved Sidebottom forward. That didn't work. Now we move Pendlebury to the forward, thinking maybe he'll do. And even in a commentary one time with Triple M, he said, right now, I don't want to be in the forward block. So, I mean, Darcy Moore was a cluster, you know what, because the guy's a halfback, not a full forward. Never should have been there. That's maybe the coach coming out in me. But for me, if I'm Nathan Buckley, run away screaming. The sad part is he's such a Collingwood guy. That's where he was. He's going to stay there. He's going to take an absolute flogging to do it. But unfortunately, I do see it. Sadly, I see Bucks re-signing and him keeping with this team. I really want to say, I really just want to walk up and go, dude, seriously, why would you even waste your time?
Right.
I would get out of there, because right now it is just not a place you want to coach footy.